China unveils its latest weapon of war, its most advanced aircraft carrier to date. But can a paper tiger float? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by MOVA globes. These globes are amazing. They spin on their own without cords or batteries. And whether you get this blue and gold model or one of their other great world map designs, you can appreciate the beauty of our planet and oceans. You know who else appreciates the oceans? The Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese regime is rapidly expanding its navy. By some estimates, it makes a new ship every month. The People's Liberation Army Navy, or Plan, already has more ships than the U.S. Navy. It's central to the Chinese Communist Party's plan to take over Taiwan and dominate the Pacific and Indian Oceans. But the key to operating a blue water navy, a navy that can operate anywhere in the world, is aircraft carriers. The United States currently has 11 in operation, and China wants to match the U.S. China's first aircraft carrier was the Liaoning, also known as Type 001. It was an old Soviet carrier that China bought from Ukraine, refitted, and put into service in 2012. But it used outdated technology and has had a host of technical problems, not the least of which being it had to have those red pegs removed from it. In fact, the Liaoning was recognized as one of the worst carriers in the world. An expert at the Center for Strategic and International Studies called it not very impressive. But with all its problems, the Liaoning was just the start of China's aircraft carrier ambitions. In 2019, China built and launched its first homemade aircraft carrier, the Type 002, the Shandong. It's very similar to the Liaoning, including the problems. Who knew red pegs were such a common issue? But making their own aircraft carrier was still a breakthrough for the Chinese Communist Party. And now, last week, China launched the Type 003, the Fujian, its most advanced aircraft carrier to date. It is a major step up, and it could mean big trouble for Taiwan. More after the break. Welcome back. For quite a while now, we've been watching satellite images of China's newest aircraft carrier, the Type 003 Fujian, being built, which was scary but less depressing than other satellite images we've been watching coming out of China. And right off the bat, we could tell this was different from any of China's previous aircraft carriers. For starters, it's much larger. It has a full displacement of more than 80,000 tons, as much as 20,000 tons more than the other two aircraft carriers. Good Lord. A ship that size, why, it would take 6 red pegs to sink instead of 5. But the biggest difference is its electromagnetic aircraft catapult. You see, most countries, well, the few countries that even have aircraft carriers, use what's called a ski jump. Aircraft have to accelerate really fast and get a boost from the ramp so they can get airborne. It's kind of like when you jumped your bike as a kid, on a ramp that costs $100 million. But that limits the weight of the aircraft. In other words, it limits its payload of weapons. Catapult aircraft carriers use a catapult to shoot a plane off the deck at high speeds. The most advanced use an electromagnetic catapult. This new catapult design is going to give the Fujian a lot of new capabilities. According to state-run Global Times, the Fujian could eventually get an improved version of the J-15 heavy fighter jet, compatible with catapult launch, an electronic warfare variant of the J-15, a next-generation stealth fighter jet reportedly to be called the J-35, a fixed-wing early warning aircraft dubbed the KJ-600, and armed reconnaissance drones. Man, this sounds like it could be the villain of the next Top Gun movie, Maverick. Mav-3-ick? Not really sure how I'm supposed to pronounce that, but it looks cool. So what are China's ambitions for this new aircraft carrier? Well, according to the Chinese Communist Party, it's to enhance the ability to safeguard world peace. Of course, We need more firepower to feel safer. They've gone from quoting Marx to quoting the NRA. But the reality is obviously quite different. There's a reason the new carrier is named the Fujian. Fujian is the Chinese province closest to Taiwan, which China has promised to invade and take over by force if necessary. In other words, safeguarding peace. And in theory, this gives China's Navy the ability to extend far beyond Taiwan, deep into the Pacific or even the Indian Ocean. China has already started preparing its military base in Djibouti for aircraft carriers. And just as the Fujian is setting sail, we're seeing signs of China's fourth aircraft carrier taking shape, a nuclear-powered one. But the Fujian may not be all it's cracked up to be. First of all, rumors were it was originally supposed to launch in April, to coincide with the 73rd anniversary of the PLA Navy. But the ship was built in Shanghai, and that's when the city was getting locked down for COVID. Always a reminder of the power microscopic organisms have over any military. If only we could safeguard them too. And the Fujian is at least 2 to 3 years away from being operational, according to experts. An aircraft carrier is a complicated beast. All the various departments on board, from aviation to the engine room to meteorology to the guns, have to learn to work together. Then they need to learn to work with a huge variety of different naval vessels and aircraft, in all sorts of different weather conditions. And then there are combat drills on top of that. And China frankly does not have the kind of experience operating this kind of network the way the United States does, though China is trying to change that quickly. But as it stands, the Liaoning is so far the only Chinese aircraft carrier with initial operational capability or the basic level of combat readiness. So despite any posturing the Chinese Communist Party may do, it is not ready for a full-on confrontation with the US yet. But the Chinese Communist Party's military, like everything else in China, is run on politics. And that can get in the way of combat readiness. According to a Taiwanese military expert, the Type 003 may have been rushed into production to satisfy Chinese officials, and some of its parts might not work as designed or as well as peers from other countries. But then there's the biggest problem with the Fujian. There are not a lot of good places to park it. Other than Djibouti, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't have any military bases overseas, at least not officially. There's rumors of China building bases in all parts of the world, but with no fully equipped overseas military bases, the Chinese Navy cannot operate far from Chinese shores, especially the Fujian. And that means Type 003's aircraft carrying technology is energy consumptive, and some of it might do poorly in a battle outside the first island chain, far from Chinese ports, meaning they would have to go from using electromagnetic catapults to just regular catapults. Good news for India, not so great news for Taiwan. And this episode may have made you realize geography is important. Understanding simply where everything is on the planet will give you a big advantage in understanding geopolitics and the maneuverings of the Chinese Communist Party. That's why you need a MOVA globe. MOVA Globes has been a sponsor of this show for years, which I love because their globes are amazing. Check this technology out. They spin automatically, powered by ambient sunlight, and when you put it back on its base, it corrects its motion. This one is the blue and gold. MOVA has tons of other cool designs too. And for a limited time, you can get 10% off 6-inch and 8.5-inch MOVA globes when you apply the code China Uncensored. So click the link in the description below and pick your favorite version. And when you buy a MOVA globe, you'll also be supporting your favorite show about China. So click below to check out MOVA globes and use the code China Uncensored. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.